said that statistics don't always tell the whole story. But when you hear as a NASCAR fan a season with 8 wins, 17 top 5s, and 22 top 10s, as well as almost 1,200 laps led, you have to think, hey, that sounds like a championship level season. And when you hear about a season with 1 win, 11 top 5s, and 25 top 10s, only leading 354 laps, you think, well, it's a decent season, it's consistent, but is that championship level? Well, in 2003, Ryan Newman found out firsthand that the 8-win season was not championship level, at least for the time. But to understand Ryan Newman's 2003, you have to look at the year before and honestly the 2 years after. In 2002, Ryan Newman exploded onto the scene as a great rookie. While only getting 1 win, he had 14 top 5s and 22 top 10s, led 754 laps, and was somebody who looked to be primed for an elite NASCAR career. He even won the 2002 Rookie of the Year over some guy named Jimmy Johnson, a guy that would win 7 championships in the sport one day. They were elite, and it was looking that 2003 would be primed for the run. Now, I told you what happened in 2003, but looking at 2004, while it didn't have the same kind of magic to it, there still was a really good showing. 2 wins, 11 top 5s, and 14 top 10s, and a qualification into the inaugural chase for the Nextel Cup. And with that, he finished 7th in points. The next year, he had 1 less win, less top 5s, but more top 10s. The consistency was there, and again, he qualified for the chase, and actually competed for the first half of it before finishing 6th in points in that one as well. But after the fact, it's been a little bit off, as many people now know Newman as a mid-pack driver who had a flare-up year. So what happened in 2003 that made it such a flare-up? Well, part of it could be Matt Borland, his crew chief, who managed to really guide him to those first 4 years of success. Borland could set up a really fast car, and Newman could really wheel a fast car. It was shown by his record amount of poles in the first 4 seasons of his career. In 2002, he had 6. 2003 had 11, 9 in 04, and 8 in 05. Absolute video game numbers, and numbers that hadn't really been seen in the qualification column since the King. And that totaled up to 34 poles in only 4 seasons. That is an average of 8 to 9 pole positions a year. Now, the results were especially good, especially with the wins column with 8. Starting out, you had the Texas race that he won. He led tons of laps in this race, had a great car, great qualifying, and in the end, he won a late race duel with none other than Dale Earnhardt Jr., someone who was in the thick of the title fight before it got basically expanded out. At Dover a couple weeks later, he dominated the event and led 162 laps from the pole. This race was unequivocally Ryan Newman's to win, and nobody really had a shot at beating him. At Chicagoland in July, he was up front, but nowhere near as dominant as his Dover win or even his Texas win. But the dominant guys of Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon, and Kevin Harvick fell off, opening the door for Newman to lead the final 58 laps of the day. Now, this was 3 wins by the halfway point, meaning that he was still on a pretty good clip, but he would only get better. And that was shown none other than where he was in points, 16th place. Now, I'll get to this later, but it's important to remember just how mediocre he was running at the time on average. His 4th win of the year would be at the second Pocono race. Now, he actually led a lot of laps in this one, but not all strung together. There were a lot of spurts where he'd lead runs throughout the day. And this race would turn into a fuel-saving day at the end, where Newman and Borland would have the strategy of Newman saving plenty of fuel over caution laps and over runs to get the win. He dueled Kurt Busch, the eventual champion of the next season, and beat him. The 5th win of the season was at Michigan in the second race. He led the race early on, but kind of faded into the top 5 and top 10. It was not a dominant day overall. But on the last run, he ran down Kurt Busch, passing him with 3 to go. While everybody else was running out of fuel, the 12 team and Ryan Newman were far and away the best guys strategy-wise and won another. The 6th win of his season came at Richmond. Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Jr. were the ones to beat early on, but Jr. and Gordon, as they did earlier in the season, opened the door for Newman again. And Newman basically owned the end of the race. The last 125 or so laps were the 12s to lose. While Jeremy Mayfield challenged him, he was no match for how good that Dodge was. Then he got the 7th win of the season at Dover. Again, not his race to win throughout the day. Tony Stewart and Dale Jr. had faster cars, but their falling or crashing out helped Newman ascend. Once again, Jeremy Mayfield would challenge him over the last 20 laps, but it really didn't matter as he had nothing for him. And then that 8th and final win of the season came at the Kansas Speedway, and Newman did not assert himself at all until late. But once again, the fuel strategy game helped him get to the front. He saved fuel over the final 50 to 60 laps, and then on the second to final restart, he took the lead from Jeremy Mayfield, the one who probably could not stand Ryan Newman the most in 2003. So hearing about that, you're probably wondering, how was this guy nowhere even near the championship fight? How was he 16th in points halfway through the season? And why did this happen? How could this happen? Well, it's because of the bad. Starting with the super speedways. At the Daytona 500 to start the season, he had what is now one of the most famous flips in NASCAR history through the tri-oval grass at the Daytona International Speedway, flipping to a 43rd and last place finish. At the first Talladega race, he did finish higher than last, but he did not make it nearly as far. He flipped out of the race on lap 3 in a huge big one crash, finishing 39th position in that one. In the Daytona Summer race, he finished on all 4 wheels, so an improvement was shown again. But fuel mileage and a car that was not up to snuff compared to a lot of them drafting meant that he would finish 22nd. And then, of course, the second Talladega race, he at least finished 4th in that one, but at that point it was too late. The damage of the first 3 super speedways was done. I'll put it in perspective. In the overall season points, Newman lost 229 to Matt Kenseth in those 3 first super speedway races alone. Those super speedway races, those 229 points in them, were the difference of finishing 6th in points or finishing 2nd in points. And that second place in points would only be an 82-point gap, just on 3 races alone. And that's only scratching the surface. He had 5 more DNFs to accompany those super speedway flips. He had a late brake failure at Martinsville. He crashed early in Fontana, causing a 42nd place finish. He had an engine failure at Michigan, again a track he won later in the season, and had a fast car until that engine failure. He had a late Atlanta crash where Dale Jr. crashed him off his nose running in the top 10, costing him nearly 100 points. And at Homestead, he had a crash while having a great run as well. He also finished 39th in the first Richmond race due to a crash, and again, Richmond is a race that he won later in the season. So it's not too far-fetched to say that if he doesn't have bad super speedway luck like he had for most of his career, and 1 or 2 part failures or bad brakes don't go the opposite way of him, Ryan Newman might be your 2003 champion. But overall, it shows that this season was feast or famine. He had 8 wins, yes, but 7 DNFs. And most of the bad luck had him as low as 27th in points after only 11 races. And while he did get more wins that helped him vault up the point standings, he also had mediocre runs that kept him in the mid-teens, like 16th at the halfway point, that pretty much ended any hope he had at a championship fight. He had a great finish to the season, which would have helped him out a lot had the chase been implemented in 2003 instead of 2004. But 2003 did prove one thing for Newman. Proved to be a fluke. He had 2 wins in 2004, yes, but that was his last multi-win season of his career. He only had 2. Never won more than 1 race for the rest of his career, and more often than not, he was winless during the season for the rest of his career. He did have a championship run in 2014, but it was under a point system that was more heavily flawed than today's is. But with that, I'm going to pass this all on to you. Knowing how fluky Newman's 2003 was, can you let me know this? What do you think are the biggest fluke seasons a NASCAR driver has ever had? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you to all my channel members for your continued support on this channel. And until next time, have a good one.